What if the footsteps echoing through that abandoned World War II bunker didn't belong to the living? What if every night, at the same hour, a man in uniform marched, without skin on his face? And what if the last person who followed him never made it out to tell the story? It started with the sound. Not a scream, not a whisper, but boots. Heavy, slow, deliberate, dragging across the cold, damp concrete beneath the cliffs of Dover. The locals called it routine echo, but Erin knew better. She'd always had a thing for forgotten places. History major, paranormal blogger, trauma survivor, the perfect recipe for obsession. So when she got word of the decommissioned tunnel system, hidden behind the coastal fog, with rumors of a soldier who never left, she went alone. On Remembrance Day, at 11:11 a.m., the exact minute the last shot was fired in the war, nearly a century ago. She wasn't scared, at least not then. She said it was just stone and rust. She posted that in her final video. Still up, still haunting. It's just air, just echoes. That's what I keep telling myself. But the temperature dropped the second I crossed the threshold. And it wasn't just cold. It was wrong. Something pressed against my chest. Like I wasn't supposed to be here. She filmed the hallway, a stretch of pitch-black tunnel, dripping with condensation, graffiti scratched over old military codes, faint, faded names etched by dying hands. And then she whispered, "There's someone down here." She stopped, held her breath, because there was someone, not speaking, not breathing, just pacing. The camera shook, then cut out. Erin never talked about her grandfather's suicide. He served in the Royal Engineers, shell-shocked, silent in life, screaming in sleep. Once, when she was 7, she found his uniform buried in the garden. Muddy, torn. The inside pockets were stuffed with notes, written backwards, names of his fallen unit, and a single message: "He walks the tunnel. I was never alone." Her mother burned the jacket. Erin never forgave her for that. Back in the present, Erin's phone pinged. An airdrop request. There was no one else around. The file name read, "For you." She accepted it. And instantly, her flashlight died. Her last recorded whisper. "He's not walking away from me. He's walking toward me." And then, silence. Not just from the phone, but from Erin herself. She was never seen again. Only her camera was found days later, outside the bunker's sealed steel door, still recording. But only one frame burned itself into memory. A soldier in uniform, no face, no eyes, standing still in the dark. But when forensic analysts reversed the footage, they saw him blinking. Who or what is still patrolling that tunnel? Was Erin pulled into something ancient or something man-made? And why do locals still leave red poppies by that door every November? Do you think this was a ghost? Or something worse? What if the last image on your phone wasn't something you took, but something left there by someone else? Someone long dead? What if a man in uniform appeared in the reflection, and you didn't see him until it was too late? And what if his boots left footprints, but no heat? The rescue team wasn't called right away, because technically, Erin wasn't missing. She just hadn't come back. 3 days passed. No text, no post, no sign of life. Her apartment untouched, laptop still on, coffee moldy on the windowsill. But it was her brother, Callum, who finally broke the silence. She wouldn't just disappear. He said that to the constable, voice hoarse, hands shaking. She wouldn't. She always tells me where she's going. They retraced her steps. Dover cliffs, chalk paths, coastal fog so thick you could vanish in a footstep. And then, they found her car, still parked. Keys gone. Door open. Phone charger still swinging. Inside her glove box was a World War II service tag. Rusty. Bent. Not hers. The name engraved into it? Private L. Ashbridge. Royal Engineers. Missing in action. 1944. She always left trails. Little clues. It was her thing. But now? It's like she was swallowed. No footprints. No blood. Just that tag. Like someone wanted me to find it. Callum didn't care what the constable said. He knew where she'd gone. And he knew who she was chasing. That ghost in the tunnel? She didn't make him up. Because their grandfather, he saw him too. The old man never spoke much. But one memory leaked out when Callum was 15. Granddad had started talking to the walls again, muttering about Ashbridge and marching orders. I left him, he whispered, eyes wide. Left him in the dark. I was the last one out, and I sealed the damn door. They thought it was dementia, until he begged them to dig up the jacket. The one Aaron had found. The one their mother had buried years ago. But it wasn't there. Only ash. And a single piece of warped metal. Dog tag. Private. L. Ashbridge. Burned clean. Callum couldn't sleep, so he did what Aaron would have done. He went back to the bunker. Alone. Midnight. Fog curling like fingers across the stone. He wore a chest cam. He kept the tag in his coat pocket. He whispered, I'm not afraid of ghosts. Just give me my sister back. And then he felt it. A draft. No, not a draft. Breath. Hot, rancid air brushing past his cheek, like someone exhaling behind him. He spun. No one. But the camera caught something else. On the concrete floor, illuminated by flashlight. Footprints. Boot prints. Leading deeper. Callum followed them. And what he found was Aaron's voice. Not live. Not in person. A loop. Playing on repeat from a broken speaker in the wall. I shouldn't have come here. I shouldn't have come here. Over and over. A broken woman's fear stitched into sound. Then, a clink. Metal against metal. The tag in Callum's pocket heated up. Burned. He dropped it, and suddenly, the footsteps behind him started marching. Deliberate. Slow. Boots scraping concrete. No breathing. No words. Just a marching. Callum turned. Camera trembling. And he whispered into the dark. Private Ashbridge? But what answered wasn't a man. Not anymore. A distorted face. Uniform soaked in soil. Eyes glowing red through gas mask lenses. And on its chest Aaron's necklace. Still warm. So the question is, who is Ashbridge really? And what does he want with Aaron? Is this the ghost of a forgotten war? Or something far darker beneath the stone? Comment below. Do you think Callum just found her? Or woke up something no one was meant to see? Because next we follow the sound of her voice. And it doesn't stop. Even when the tunnel ends. What if you followed a voice that belonged to someone who was no longer breathing? What if you walked into a tunnel with no recorded blueprint, and every time you turned around, it got longer? And what if you realized you were no longer underground, but beneath something alive? Callum was never supposed to step past the main corridor. The Ministry of Defense sealed that bunker in 1961, declared it structurally unstable, spiritually volatile. Words scratched out of official records. Words someone wanted forgotten. But he didn't stop walking. Not when the voice called out again. Not when the floor beneath him started breathing. Callum. Soft. Distant. Familiar. It wasn't a recording now. It was Aaron. Calling his name like she was trapped in a dream. He clutched the camera to his chest. His heartbeat drowned everything. His breath steamed in the freezing air. But the sound of boots behind him never stopped. The tunnel stretched. I swear it wasn't this long when I came in. I saw my own footprints fade behind me, one by one, like the ground was swallowing them. And the walls? They weren't stone anymore. They were something else. Soft, damp, like flesh. He turned the flashlight toward the wall. It blinked. Not eyes. Not human. But something watching. The stone pulsed. And then the air filled with static. Not the kind from machines, but the kind from memory. The smell of petrol. The screams of boys dying in French mud. Gas masks. Sirens. Gunfire. Flashback. Not his. The soldiers. 1944. A gas pocket rupture inside the southeast tunnel. 5 men trapped. Ashbridge the last one seen, dragging the wounded deeper, not toward the exit. He was never recovered. They said the explosion buried him. But no one ever found the collapse. Because maybe there wasn't one. Maybe Ashbridge didn't want to leave. Maybe he built something down there. Something alive. Callum stumbled forward. His fingers scraped against what should have been stone, but felt like fabric, curtain, draped across the tunnel's end. He pulled it aside, and what he saw was a room, furnished, lit, with Aaron's laptop on a desk, running, open video feed, recording him, live. On the screen, behind him, stood a man in full World War II gear. Callum spun. Nothing. But then a clink. His sister's necklace, dangling from the ceiling on a hook. Still warm. Still damp. Still beating. The walls groaned. The lights flickered. The room began to shrink. No door. No vent. No oxygen. Only one way out. A narrow crawlspace in the floor. Lined with teeth. Not metal. Bone. He hesitated. And the voice returned. Callum. It's me. Please don't leave me down here. So he crawled. Down. Further than should be possible. Each foot forward felt like sinking into a lung. And then, he fell. Into a room that should not exist. A memorial chamber. Stone plaques with names of soldiers lost in action. But the names weren't historical. They were current. His, Aaron's. And someone named Dr. Phoebe Harland. A name he'd never heard. But carved last. Dated 2 days in the future. How did his name get carved in a forgotten chamber no one was supposed to reach? Who is Dr. Harland? And what does she know about Aaron? And is she next? Because as Callum turned to leave, the boots started again. Marching closer. Slower. Breathing heavier. Only now, they were behind him and ahead of him. He wasn't in a tunnel. He was in a loop. Do you think Callum's already dead? And doesn't know it? Comment below. Because the next name carved might be yours. Because next, we find Dr. Harland. And the bunker follows her home. What if you destroyed every trace of a secret, and it still came back, rewritten in your own handwriting? What if the bunker didn't need your body, just your memories? And what if a woman who tried to bury the truth is now being haunted by things she never lived through, but somehow still remembers? Dr. Phoebe Harland had spent her entire life trying to disprove ghosts. Not out of arrogance. Out of fear. She was a trauma psychologist. Military liaison. Lectured across the UK on combat-induced hallucinations. She had answers. Until one of her own patients, a soldier named Declan Wyatt, went missing after whispering just one name. Ashbridge. I thought I'd seen everything trauma could do to the human mind. But Declan wasn't delusional. He was remembering. Things he shouldn't know. Faces of men who died in 1944. He could describe the exact structure of a decommissioned tunnel, right down to the chalk symbols near the door. He drew the map from memory. But Declan had never been there. And neither had Harland. Or so she thought. Because late one night, as she prepared to archive his file, she found something wedged behind the cover. A letter. Yellowed, faded, burned at the edges, and signed in her own handwriting. If I ever forget, burn this. Phoebe H. But she didn't remember writing it. Didn't remember being there. Didn't remember ever knowing anyone named Ashbridge. So she did as the note said. She burned it. But the next morning, her journal was soaked in ink. The same letter, rewritten word for word, in reverse. Harland had recurring dreams as a child. The same hallway, dark, echoing, cold. She always thought it was from a childhood fire, a house collapse, something buried. But recently, the dream changed. There was now a man standing at the end of the corridor. Not quite human, not quite alive. He wore a military uniform, mouth stitched shut, eyes bleeding through a gas mask. He never spoke. But he held out a rusted tag in his hand. And behind him, a woman's voice called out, "Help me. He has my name." The haunting didn't begin in the bunker. It began in her flat. First, the smell. Burnt metal. Mold. wet limestone, then shadows, moving where light shouldn't bend. And then objects appeared. Erin's missing necklace. Callum's voice recorded on her laptop, saying a phrase he never said. The loop only ends when the one who broke it remembers. Harland couldn't explain it. Not logically, not medically, so she pulled her old university records, looked into her own background, and that's when she discovered it. A summer internship, unpaid, undocumented, at the Ministry of Defense Archives. She had worked 1 month in Project Veil, a psychological warfare unit, focused on wartime hallucinations, gas exposure, and mass suggestion, based at a now-destroyed location, the Dover bunker, except the records didn't say it was destroyed. They said it was sealed, because of a subject they couldn't contain. Private Ashbridge. That night, the door to her flat creaked open, but she hadn't left it unlocked. And when she turned to shut it, the hallway was gone. In its place was the tunnel, soaked in darkness, walls dripping, the sound of boots pacing, over and over, and on the floor directly in front of her, her own name carved in chalk. Below it, Trial 18, the empathic witness, and next to it, a cracked mirror. But the reflection wasn't hers. It was Erin, bleeding from the eyes, mouth moving without sound. Then the mirror shattered, and Harland collapsed. She woke up hours later, flat intact, door locked, but her left hand was covered in dust. Chalk dust, with the same 3 words written on her palm. He has her. Who is Trial 18? Why does Ashbridge want witnesses, especially empaths like Erin and Harland? And how are they connected, if they've never met? Or have they? Do you think Dr. Harland was part of something darker? Something erased from her mind? Comment below, because we go back to the ministry, where the experiment began, and where something was locked away that should have never been built. Before the next name carved is yours. What if a war didn't stop when the guns did, but kept crawling beneath the ground, waiting? What if the dead didn't rest because something experimental kept them marching? And what if the Ministry of Defense had sealed away more than just a tunnel? They buried an entire consciousness, and now it wants out? Didn't remember booking the train, didn't remember picking up the envelope until it was already in her hands. Top secret, Project Veil. Return location, Mod Archives, Whitehall. Room, B13. Key inside you. And inside the envelope was a single keycard, scratched, rusted, with her name already etched in the plastic. But she'd never been issued one. My fingers trembled the moment I touched that card, not because I was scared, but because I recognized it. The same texture, the same weight. I'd held this before. But when? Why? Why did my own handwriting label the folder inside the envelope? Reactivation triggers. And why was my name listed next to it? Next to the phrase, Witness Class 18. She followed the corridor beneath Whitehall. Stone turned to metal, metal to frost. Room B13 didn't exist on public blueprints, but it was real, real and humming. When the keycard scanned, the door unlocked, and beyond it was a room that looked like a museum of forgotten minds. Inside were rows of filing cabinets, dozens, hundreds, each labeled not by project, but by name: Declan Wyatt, Callum Rowe, Erin Harland, P. Harland, Ashbridge, and one, burned around the edges. Its label melted. She pulled it anyway. Inside photos, not taken on any known device. Black and white prints of faces pressed against bunker walls, screaming, clawing, some with missing eyes, some with Erin's features but warped. And in the center of the file, a memo from 1946, Project Veil Memo 11D, subject, L. Ashbridge exhibiting dimensional bleed. Continues to manifest traumatic recall in non-empirical space. Recommending permanent sealing. Conscious loop stable if no empathic witnesses are introduced. Phoebe dropped the file. Her pulse quickened. Her throat tightened. Because that phrase, empathic witnesses, it was in her dreams. etched into the wall back in the tunnel, spoken in the voice of her dead patient. They built the veil to stop the scream, but now it's thin, and it's listening again. The lights above flickered. She turned. Room B13 was changing. Cabinets melting, steel warping into stone. Not metaphorical, real. It was becoming the bunker. Bootsteps echoed. Dirt scattered across the floor. And then breath. A shallow exhale. Just inches from her neck. She turned. Private Ashbridge. Standing in the doorway. Face wrapped in gas mask mesh. Skin transparent. Eyes unreadable. He didn't move. Didn't speak. But behind him, she saw Aaron. Mouth moving. Mouthing a phrase. Over and over. You're the key. That's when it hit her. The experiment. The memory. The truth. She had been in the bunker. Not as a civilian. Not as a psychologist. As a control subject. Part of the 1983 reopening trials. Project Veil wasn't designed to contain spirits. It was designed to harvest trauma. To record the exact psychological echoes of war. And weaponize them. A psychic archive of unresolved fear. Grief. Rage. All channeled through empathic minds. And Ashbridge? He wasn't the prisoner. He was the power source. Harland stepped back. The room warped again. Stone walls dripping. Camera footage looping on all the monitors. Aaron. Callum. Declan. Her. All of them screaming the same words. Same boots in the dirt. Even though no one stood behind her. Except something was wrong. It was 1944. The cars were gone. My phone, dead. The cliff edge looked younger, untouched by time. The bunker door wasn't sealed. It was wide open, waiting, like it remembered me. I tried to turn back, but my feet wouldn't listen. I wasn't walking anymore. I was being pulled. She crossed the threshold. No flashlight, no camera, only the sound of marching, beneath the floor. But this time, she wasn't alone. Voices whispered through the tunnel walls. Not echoes, not ghosts, replays. She heard Ashbridge giving orders. Heard the explosion that never officially happened. Heard 5 men screaming inside a collapsing shaft. But it wasn't just sound. It was bleed. Memory forcing itself through matter. She touched the wall, and it felt like skin. Pressed her hand against it, and a pulse beat back. Then a sound. A voice. Faint. Fractured. Right next to her ear. You were always meant to return, witness 18. She kept walking. The air became thick. Smelled of rust and burned cloth. The light flickered. And then, the tunnel changed. It opened into a room that shouldn't be there. The observation chamber. Circular. Furnished with steel chairs, broken monitors, and scratched clipboards. But this time, the walls were covered in photos. Her photos. From her past. Childhood snapshots. Graduation day. Declan's final appointment. And at the center, a massive black and white image. The tunnel. Empty. Except for one figure at the end. Aaron. Looking directly at the camera. But when Phoebe blinked, the photo changed. Now Aaron was reaching out. Hands bloody. Eyes pleading. And behind her, Ashbridge. Uniform dissolving. Eyes pitch black. Holding a syringe. Pointed at Aaron's neck. Phoebe staggered back. But the room began to spin. Screens lit up. A feed started playing. Not CCTV. Mind footage. Her own thoughts projected in real time. Everything she tried to forget. Every repressed scream. Every dream where the soldier reached through her mirror. It wasn't paranormal. It was psychological warfare turned inward. Project Veil didn't trap ghosts. It harvested unresolved trauma. And forced witnesses to relive it on a loop. Until the memory consumed them. Until they weren't people anymore. But data. She turned. And there he was. Ashbridge. No longer in uniform. Now a raw skeletal form. Draped in shadow and memory. His voice garbled. Wet. But it came through. They sealed me with the screams. I don't want revenge. I want release. He reached into his chest. And pulled out a pulse. Aaron's necklace. But now it was fused with copper wire and ash. He extended it. If you wear this, you'll see everything. And before she could scream, he placed it around her neck. The world split open, and suddenly, Phoebe wasn't in her body. She was in Aaron's. She saw through her eyes, felt her final panic, heard herself whisper, "He's not a ghost. He's a loop made of pain." And then nothing. When Phoebe opened her eyes again, she was recording, standing in the tunnel, camera blinking red, her voice whispering the next part of the story, as if she'd always been there, as if the loop had rewritten her. Do you think Aaron ever left? Or did the bunker just wear her face? Is Phoebe really inside the memory? Or has she become part of it? Comment below, because we face what lives beneath the veil, and whether anyone can come out of it whole. What if you spent your life chasing ghosts, only to discover you were one of them? What if every memory you held wasn't yours, but implanted by something buried alive? And what if the only way out of the nightmare was to accept that you'd never really left? Dr. Phoebe Harland stood in the tunnel, breathing someone else's breath. The camera blinked red in her hand, but her fingers weren't her own. She could feel it now. Not just the loop, but the truth. There was no exit. There was no rescue, because she wasn't the observer anymore. She was part of the archive, and someone else was watching her. I don't know where she ends and I begin. My name used to be Phoebe, but now it echoes wrong in my throat. I hear Aaron's thoughts when I sleep. I feel her fear in my teeth. I see Ashbridge in my dreams, but now he's wearing my face. It wasn't possession. It was integration. The loop didn't haunt the living. It swallowed them, layered their minds together like film reels, replaying pain until it became code. And inside that code, the soldier lived on. Not a ghost, not a man, but a machine made of trauma and memory. In the farthest room of the tunnel, the chamber no one reached alive, lay a machine, buried under dust, made of wires, bone, and rusted brass. The black box mind, a World War II-era experiment, designed to extract battlefield memories and convert them into forever patterns, not just for history, for weaponization, for control, for erasure. Ashbridge wasn't the victim. He was the prototype, hooked into the system in 1944, left conscious, while the ministry recorded his dying moments on a loop, over and over and over, until his mind broke apart and fused with the machine. Every ghost they saw, every whisper, every dream, wasn't spiritual. It was data, stored, played, looped back into anyone with enough emotional capacity to feel it. That's why they picked the empaths. That's why Aaron, Declan, Callum, Phoebe, they weren't just victims. They were recording devices. Their trauma was the currency. And the bunker was alive with it. She stumbled forward, knees buckling, the necklace pulsing around her throat like a heartbeat. And then she saw it. A plaque, embedded into the stone. Not old, new. Witness File 18. Phoebe Harland. Status: successfully integrated. Loop cycle: infinite. Beneath it, etched into the stone in dried blood: "You were never outside." Phoebe screamed, but the tunnel did not echo, because she was no longer in the tunnel. She was the tunnel. Every brick, a scream she forgot. Every drip, a thought Aaron tried to bury. Every echo, Ashbridge begging to die. She wasn't recording anymore. She was playing. Endlessly. That's why the door never opened. That's why the loop felt real. Because it was never about escape. It was about capturing the ones who believe they still can. So the next time you hear boots pacing in a place no one should be, ask yourself this: are you hearing a ghost? Or someone trapped in the same loop, waiting for you to join them? Do you think Phoebe ever existed at all? Or was she always just a memory built for you? Comment below and subscribe to the Veil of Secret, because some stories don't end. They just wait for the next witness, for you.